Good afternoon, everyone.
Hey, Dusty.
How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. How about you?
Hanging in there for a Monday.
I hear ya.
Looks like some more people are still rolling in and joining. Do you want to give it a minute or so, or?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
sure. Okay, hi, Bob.
Oh,
Thank you so much for making time for us today. Um, we might as well get started. Usually start with any homeowner comments. Hi, Andy.
Hi.
Oh my gosh, Tara, no problem.
Thank you. No one wants to see this.
Oh no, I can't even imagine. Um, well, I'd like to just move, I don't hear anybody popping in with any homeowner comments, probably want to save them until the end. So I'd love to be able to take advantage of the time we have with Bob. And Bob, we just got the latest copy, the latest draft of the reserve study on Friday. So speaking for myself, I had a little time to look through things, but not a ton because there's the operations budget and then financials and everything else to look through.
Yeah.
So we thought this would be a great opportunity to have you walk us through the main points. And then, we could ask you sort of follow-up questions. That was my thought.
okay. Basically, all I tried to do was rebuild the existing three-phase over 4 or 5 year project in per how I think you all think it's going to happen as of now.
You're talking about the painting and siding project
Yes, and fencing.
and fencing.
And it seems like about a year ago to me, even though I guess we sent it out on Friday. So in working with Bill, we tried to capture at least the project in the best cost, how it is now. So that's the main part. The second part we did was recast the landscaping for how we think that you all want it. So I really don't have a dog in this as opposed to like in the site visit years. All I'm trying to do is have the plan for at least now through 2027 for the siding, fencing, and painting to match what we think you're going to spend so I can run the funding plan appropriately. And secondly, recast the landscaping. There was a couple things that Bill caught that I agreed with. We should defer, such as the paving for phase 7, I think it was, that was due for next year. Because kind of better to line that up with future cycles after this main work is done. But other than that, that's all I really did.
Bob,
Okay,
one of the things that we had talked about, and I think, first of all, thank you, for all of your hard work on this. But on the siding, we had talked about 6-month intervals or 6-year intervals, if you will, cycles.
Mhm.
And we extended that out to 12 years. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, and you know what? That's one dog I guess I did have in it, but that wasn't to change it substantively. It just, I didn't think you were going to spend as much as you were spending this year every 6 years. So I pushed it to 12 years, realizing the way the model works, after 6 years, if you did have to spend a lot, you would have half of the total amount available in 6 years. So it wasn't to say everything's going to be great for 12 years. It was saying the large amount that you're spending in this phase, let's plan for that again, but not so soon after 6 years. Let's plan for it after 12 years, the second cycle of paint, realizing that you might have to do maybe half of it again. I don't know. I think that's something we were going to get into more next year. But I thought this would be much more realistic than putting in the millions and millions that we have in now every 6 years in perpetuity in the plant.
Okay.
Thanks for reminding me on that, because I did speak out of school by saying I didn't have a dog. I had a
Oh,
puppy.
that's okay. You had a puppy.
Yeah.
Okay, a question, Bob. I looked out to 2047 to see if this had any impact, and I'm not sure what, it seems like the numbers are down for the way out years, like 2047, but did you integrate in at all the influence or the impact of the substitution of the changing product from T111? Because based on my calculations, if we were doing 6-year cycles, by the time we're out the 6th year, the trim costs don't fall, and of course the fences are separate, but just on the siding, we'd be down to 0.38 times the costs, simply because by then we would have replaced almost all the T111, and it'll be gone at the rate we're currently replacing it.
No, I did not. I thought we should do that next year when we're going to take a deeper dive into this, and that impact won't affect the model much because it's so far out past the hurdles that we have over the next 5 to 10 years. It might by a very small amount, but the
Yeah,
other thing is, from when we met originally this year, I thought you were doing more of the LP type siding, and when I looked into it, it's not. It's another wood-based softwood with just a veneer of hardwood on it. So it's still a wood product, a quality one to be sure, but I don't know if I would make a lot of large scale changes until we have a little bit of history. But again, I was trying to hope we could save that for next year when we do the inspection and really look at all the cycles in perpetuity. It won't be up to me, it'll be up to the board, but I'd prefer to wait for next year on that.
okay, so that's news to me, Bill, because that's the first time somebody's told me it's still a wood-based product.
Yeah, I went to their website, Roseburg, and it's a veneer hardwood on top of a softwood, like a plywood or it's not an OSB infused with resin like LP was on your clubhouse. That's a whole different deal.
Okay,
But like I said, it is a quality product. Don't let me tell you it's not. You're buying the Cadillac of wood. And if I'm wrong, please point it out. But I downloaded the materials sheets from their website.
Well, we'll definitely check it out, because
Yeah.
so, I mean, the way it was sold to us, it was the same as Hardy Board.
yeah,
That
because Marcus is not on today, right?
Marcus is on,
Is he?
yeah.
I'm looking, oh, wait, I see him. Marcus, do you know the answer to that?
I am on here, so no, I do not know the answer, but we can get the answer obviously from Paul Reeves.
Sure.
Yeah, because this is the first time this has come up.
That's kind of surprising to me too, actually.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I hope that you're wrong, Bob. I bless
Me
your
too.
heart. You're almost never wrong, but in this case, I hope you are. But we'll definitely have a much deeper dive into it next year. But that definitely was one of our questions, and I recognize, you didn't have that much time to turn this reserve study around. So, there's only so much that you can do, and, with the level of certainty that you need to have when you're projecting out.
And let me say, I didn't compare it against Hardy Board. I compared it against the LP that you guys used last. So against the Hardy Board, I'm not 100% sure how that analysis would look.
LP is again, the going back a couple of contractors, not this contractor, but the information we had was that LP and Hardy Board had similar life expectancies, and that they had been used, they'd installed them and they'd been in place for a number of years, and it was seeming to prove out. But and then we couldn't get, we had to change products at the end, at the last minute there, and I don't know. Nobody ever informed me that it was a wood-based product, but I'm kind of off to the side. I mean, the board's dealing directly with the project manager, and
Yeah, like I say, I hope I'm wrong. And even if I'm right, it doesn't mean I might not last 50 years anyway. I'm just saying that based on what I was told at the meeting, or what I thought I heard at the meeting that we were at, that it was compared closely with LP, and LP was a pretty unique product when everybody was going to it. So anyway, I'm happy to be wrong on that.
yeah, well, that's a major question we need to get answered.
Yeah, it's something that really, and Bob talks about, next year deeper dive, and it's one that in the conversations that Bob and I had, and that we firmly agree that as we look at our reserve study, we need to take a real hard look at it in 2024, because we've got some challenges, and we need to take a deep reassessment of where we are and the directions things are going.
Yeah.
Well, to me, the challenges aren't even what we're talking about. The challenges are landscaping. I mean, your study can be from a poor man to Beverly Hills with the stroke of a couple of numbers on landscaping. And that's the unknown that is hard for anybody to predict. But to me, I think we'll be able to come to consensus on the siding next year pretty fast. It's the landscaping and the unknowns around landscaping that's, to me, the huge drivers on this.
And the newest one being the non-potable water, which just came up. Thank you, Sacramento.
Bill, can I answer you guys' question quick here? Paul Reeves just told me Duratemp is wood-based. The top or front side is a wood composite, the back being plywood.
Yeah, I thought the front was a hardwood on top of the plywood, but
Composite sounds more likely, as to what's being done.
That's what I was told here from Paul Reeves.
Yeah, but the main part of it, see, the thing about LP with it using the epoxy, you may have heard the story, but one of the contractors that installed it had a board member that put a section of LP in a 5-gallon bucket of water for 2 years. It never changed its shape, size, anything. Didn't blow up like a piece of wood or some of the other products do. And this product, you couldn't do that test because it's on plywood. And so the LP was a really unique product in that regard. But it has been compared to Hardy board. I just didn't look into the triangle of the three as much as I did the LP versus the Dura Temp. So, because the Dura Temp was new to me, I hadn't heard of it before. That's why I researched it, not to try to bring you bad news. I just wanted to learn about it.
Well, I suppose it would be good to know why they say that the product has such a long lifespan. I mean, so that you know what you would predict. I mean, based on
Right.
actual evidence.
Yeah. And like I said, it's a quality product. You're not buying something cheap. I mean, everyone agrees it's a quality product. So,
I don't know if we just need to find somebody who's got some history with it. I mean, the LP and the Hardy board, we had people, people had history with that product. And then at the last minute, they couldn't get the LP, and we got Duratemp, and I didn't know that we were switching to a wood-based product.
yeah, even if it's a composite on plywood, it's still wood-based, but
Yeah, well, if it's a composite, its exterior may be highly durable, but if you get water in behind it in any way, you're right back to the same problem.
yeah. That's above my pay grade. Sorry to bring it up. And
Well, it's good to know.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll let out the grenade and sign off.
Yeah. Thanks, Bob. I remember it now. I'm not knowing. I feel like I've got to take a look at this, but I felt like there were some 6-year cycles in there of maybe it was painting.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and
I think that's what it was. Yes. That one of the things in conversation with in the discussion is, we'd run the painting at 6-year cycles, because of protection, and also with that, as Bob, you'll recall pointing out, okay, we're going to find in that painting, we're going to find some material that needs to be replaced. We deal with it at that 6-year cycle, which actually protects our investment.
I thought this paint had a longer lifespan. Didn't we use some fancy paint this time around that had like 25-year lifespan, which we thought, well, that's, great, but we're never going to leave it up there for 25 years. I mean, we have money set aside every year for any kind of problems that we need to repair on the siding, right?
Right.
And painting would go along with that. But I'm
right.
just wondering about the need for a 6-year cycle on that painting. Why not just have it consistent with the siding? I mean, it's a substantial amount of money every 6 years.
Yeah. I mean, my hope was to plan for 6 and hope for 8, but that was a thing. I think that's tied closely to the product and a decision for next year. Because they're interlinked. They're not separate. They're definitely the discussion we should have together. And with an 8-year cycle, we could also do a small 4-year refresh where you go through and catch any issues after 4 years. Usually, if we go longer than 5 or 6 years on a paint cycle, we like to do a mid-cycle touch-up where there might be some areas that need it, that can't wait the 8 years. So that's another possibility, is to go to an 8-year with a mid-cycle touch-up.
I have to say that I don't think I can ever remember getting any kind of mid-cycle touch-up, but,
Probably not, but
We did once do a 12-year cycle going back, I don't know, 20 years ago. And we ended up, I mean, essentially it was doubled our cost. I mean, and things were starting to, the trim in particular was starting to look pretty shabby. The trim really broke down, or showed the breakdown more than the T111 did. I mean, the T111 was bad once you started taking it off, but it wasn't as visible to the eye.
yeah. Did you just not have information about what the product was that we were using, or that was just,
I wouldn't have changed it no matter what it said.
yeah,
Just based off that, not without going into a deeper dive of the product it's going on, and how all those cycles are going to interplay.
Yeah.
I got the impression from the meeting I was at in person when we went back into the history of the 8-year to 6-year, that you wanted to keep it at 6-year for right now. I didn't even think that was an option, nor would I would think it was, because we said we're going to do a deep dive.
Yeah.
You know, 4
Well,
months.
Well, I think an approach is, you know, we've got it 6 years. We might look at 8 years with some touch-ups, but that's going to be one that requires us, you know, to review our structures and identify areas that need what I'll call midterm maintenance. So if we do that, we can certainly establish a process for that.
And maybe we have a meeting right after the first of the year with the construction manager, the contractor, us, and really just, instead of me saying something that someone else isn't here to address, have us all just speak our piece, and then the board has all the information it needs to make a decision.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if the board is talking about the cycles. They're not talking about it with us. So, you know, we don't have access to that information. I don't think we've ever suggested, Will, when you did your calculations, you used a 6-year cycle,
Oh,
but
the first time I did them, I did 8-year. And then, but the board had decided to go with 6-year, so I changed them to 6-year.
I see.
So
Well, I
that's
suppose,
the board's decision whether they want to, you know, project. And of course, then a subsequent board can either concur or alter the decision. But certainly you come out better on paint, I think, in the 8-year cycle. I don't know that you come out any better on any of the trim or siding or fences on 8-year. It's just, you know, it increases kind of at a linear rate, it looks like, based on past experience. But if you were getting 8 years out of the paint instead of 6 years out of the paint, that would be a savings.
absolutely. Well, I agree. I think it's a great idea for you all to meet and actually have some information when you make the decision about a 6-year versus an 8-year cycle. That'd probably be helpful.
Yeah, because I'd like to hear that. I mean, we would want to do that anyway as part of our due diligence on the site visit. We did that with other contractors in the past during the site visits. So including you guys in it as well would be good. And then what I can do on my first draft next year is put in, based on all that information we all hear together, put you a first draft with either 6, 7, 8, whatever. And then from there, like I said, we recommend, you know, it's not going to be up to the board to make the decisions. So I think that'd be appropriate to do next year.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody have other questions for Bob?
I have a question on the replacement value. I have it on the irrigation, actually. It's a little forward here, but we're showing the replacement value at 500,000. And then we're showing it being replaced in 24, 25, and 26 at 512, 575, and then 38,000. So I don't understand the difference. If the replacement value, it looks like we're replacing it. Oh, excuse me, it was 12,500 and then 500. It still looks like we're replacing it more than one time. And I guess I'm trying to understand that.
That's to spend 500,000 a year for 3 years. And the reason the price goes up over those 3 years is for the inflation. We're looking at 18,000 / number 242 in the reserve study on page 18.
Exactly.
And so it's $1.5 million split over 3 years.
Okay, I get that. But you're only showing the current replacement value at 500. If you're doing it 3 times, it's,
Yeah, we could do it the other way. We could have 3 components of 500,000 each. That would increase your current replacement cost, which would then decrease your percent funded. But there's no right way or wrong way to present that category. It's like for a yearly category, we don't put it in 30 times. We just say you're going to spend X each dollar.
so you're just saying it's 500 a year to replace it.
For whatever that component is, to be
Okay.
honest with you, I don't even know.
Okay.
It's 1.5 million split
Yeah.
over 3 years.
Okay. It just said the current replacement was 500, and that was just a confusing thing to me. I'm trying to
Oh.
understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just kind of getting into the weeds of how we.
Okay, so the
component.
the current replacement value isn't really all that important then?
No,
Because, okay, got it.
yeah, because if you
okay.
look at all the yearly components below it, none of those would be correct, because basically what the current replacement value is the value to replace it the next time. So that could be the next time every 20 years is this year, or the next time is 20 years.
Okay.
Um,
It just looks like we're replacing the valves over the next
Well,
3 years, and then we're going to do it again over the next 3 subsequent years, and then every year after that, there is a replacement cost on the valves. It just goes from 242 to 248.
yep,
It just goes on into infinity.
yep.
It just feels like, from a business standpoint, that if this valve replacement job is to save money on our watering, that we're never going to get a return on investment. I don't see us ever using that much water. I could be wrong, but it just feels like it's a lot of money. That's
Christine, would you like to comment on that? I think Christine's on mute. You're right in that it's a lot of money. It's renovation and irrigation. So
yeah, I
it's
saw
going
that.
through.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things. We had a huge amount, for irrigation, but as we go through and we look at our maturing landscape, yeah, we need to do some renovation, and simultaneous to that, we address the irrigation at the same time.
Well,
And that's
isn't
really
that in
what's in there.
plant replacement?
No. Irrigation's not in plant.
What are you referring to, Nina?
Line 242.
Well, you're saying
Christina.
renovation. You're saying renovation is in irrigation because you need to replace old plants. But to me,
Is that the 500,000 you're referring to?
yes.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, okay. So what we did here is that if you remember last year, or at least in 2023, the previous board had set aside $721,000 for the irrigation balancing project. And that was going to start in the zones 3 and 4, and then was going to continue in 2024 for the same amount in 5 and 6, and then the third year. So what we have done is we have removed that from the reserve study. We felt that this was not something that we could actually include at this point in time in the IBP project. So we removed that. And what we have done is actually looking at going back to the drawing board and saying, what was the purpose of that IBP? Why did the board actually decide to move forward on that? So we have actually removed it entirely, but we do have, as you know, Nina, a lot of work that still needs to be done in the community. And so what we've put aside is in the reserve is about 500,000 that could take care of any requirements as far as landscape remediation is concerned. And what we are trying to do, whenever we do any remediation, we change the water from Netafim to drip system. So that's where we are right now. So we've just put that aside for remediation work.
So this remediation is just for the irrigation remediation then?
No,
not for plant
no,
replacement?
no, not at all. It is actually for, let's say, if we were to remove some turf or we're creating a planter bed, etc., that which is what has been happening, remove some of the turf. Then we are saying, okay, when we remove the turf or we remove certain shrubs and we put in this, the planters, the shrubs, we're going to convert the Netafim to drip system.
Yeah,
And so that would say, that's the reason why. So the 512,000 is there for.
and that is just to convert the Netafim, or is it to replace the plants too?
Replace the plants as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess what's confusing is there's another line item for plant replacement.
Yes, exactly. We do have that. That was put in there. Again, you know, I mean, the 512,000 and another, what I think is 60,000 for the plant replacement, if I'm correct. 60,000 somewhere in there. Yeah. So we have put that in there, and there's also bark replacement, etc.
So
Again,
they're kind of all mixed. They're not separated out for each item,
No,
like the
correct.
lands- Yeah.
yeah. And so what we did though is remove that 721,000 that the previous board had actually approved, and removed that entirely. And just going now basically on what the grounds committee feels needs to be done as far as remediation is concerned in the various zones. We're trying to just not be in the same situation as we were in 2023, where we've had walk notes and remediation plans kind of backdated to September 2022. So that's where we're trying to sort of get everything back on board.
So it's really kind of opinion that plants all need to be replaced. I mean, I'm not saying some of them don't get me wrong. I'm just saying doing the whole plant replacement and irrigation piece at the same time, as we're trying to figure out all of this siding, is kind of a lot of money at once.
Well, we're not necessarily having to spend all of that money. I mean, we are putting that aside as an aside there, just like the previous board did with the 721,000. I mean, if you will notice, for instance, altogether in 2023, we had what we had in the reserves for 2023 was 1,589,477 for landscaping itself. And by removing IBP, we have come down quite considerably now to, I believe it's to 1,298,000, I believe. I've got it somewhere in here. Yeah, landscape reserves now is for 2024 is 1,248,756, as opposed to 1,589,477. So we have sort of tried to.
Well, it just seems
narrow
like
it
we
down.
continue to overspend every year in the allocation we've set out.
Well, it doesn't necessarily mean we're overspending it. It's an allocation. So we have so many other components.
Okay,
in there.
we're not sticking to the allocation. We keep adding more money to the allocation, however we want to frame that.
Except
Yeah.
we have reduced it in 2023 from 1,589,477 to 1,248,756, which I think is rather reasonable considering we have 55 acres of landscape here.
Thanks, Christina. I have one small question that's just taking it into a different place. I just want to say, Ashley, you can you save your comments until the end? Because we're not taking comments right now from homeowners. But I wanted to, if there's no other comments about landscape or questions, just wanted to mention a little thing. It's a very small thing that I saw which we'll certainly address next year. On page 16, the Commons area tennis courts still has that 62, almost 63,000 in there for 2027. I think all of the rest of the tennis courts have switched over to the new cycles, but that looks like it just got overlooked.
I thought we moved it
Perhaps.
from like next year to out in 2027, didn't we?
No, this is on the Dunbar, the Commons tennis court. And I
Yeah.
went back and I looked and no, we didn't move that one.
Are you talking the reseal?
Yeah, we're talking, this
Yeah.
is the resurface, not the
We-
reseal, the resurface.
Yeah, now it's in 2027.
Yeah,
Okay, I thought we moved that on the last draft from an earlier date to 2027. No?
We had 52,000 in this for 2023, correct, Susan? I believe.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we
We
shifted it to
deleted,
next-
we
next-
did, we actually deleted that. We asked for that to be deleted because we will never be doing resurfacing on the tennis courts. We will only be doing resealing, which would be about 20,000 is what I believe we have put down in the reserve study for 2024 for the two commons courts.
Right, so you can just take that 62,899 out.
Yes.
yeah.
Take it out or move it way out in the future.
Just
We
take
will
it out.
we will never use that amount on the tennis courts for those two courts. We don't use it that often for it to be resurfaced.
Yeah, just take it out. You've got everything else budgeted perfectly.
All right. Got
Just-
it. Okay.
Any other questions for Bob, comments?
I have a question on our percent funded and how it's going down. We're going to be at 48.5% funded this year. That seems like it's pretty low to me. I look back at the 2020 page, Bob, where you had done kind of a similar thing and showed us how many years ahead where we expected to be. So I looked at the 2020 version, and at that time we predicted we would be at 76% funded. And as it turns out, we're now at 48.5% funded for next year. What are the drivers behind that being dropped?
But every component where we change a cost, a useful or a remaining life impacts that calculation. So the mix of all the changes, in the last 3 years has driven it down in the short term. Now, in the long term, I can't really say that because the goal for your funding plan is to stay above 5 million. So in future years, like near the end of the study, it's down that low on purpose through the funding plan. But in terms of 2024, that's just the impact of all of the work that's staged now that was not in or was in at a different cost or projection back in 2020.
So the upcharge in the what we're spending on the siding certainly would have impact on that, I'm guessing, because we're pretty high in comparison. And it would also be the landscape, because it seems like those are the numbers, the big numbers. I took a look at all of them, but the big numbers that went up are those. In the
Nina, you're absolutely right. The big numbers that in looking at this, and the ones that are when I look back at the historical reserve amounts and what we've got in our siding projects, they're huge.
Yeah.
And
landscape
it's one-
elevated relatively the same, equally.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more money in the siding, I understand.
yeah,
But,
but you know
yeah.
when I look at it, I don't think we ever thought that the siding project and this a round number was going to be hit us in the neighborhood of plus $7 million.
Right.
in contemplation. And of course, that has a huge impact on the cash flow and that. And that's one of the things that we need to look at. The other thing that we need to look at when we look at the history of the reserve assessments, there have been years when we assessments have not increased significantly or as one might have expected. So that, of course, has had an impact on what that funding is too.
Didn't we had a couple of years where the board did not set the contribution to reserves at the recommended level?
Exactly.
That would have had an impact. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers. I mean, it wasn't huge, but it was less than the increase that was recommended.
Yeah, when you think about $10 in the monthly assessment works out to around $71,000 a year. But when you carry that out over multiple years, because it continues, and you have subsequent years of assessments, that's where you're rebuilding and also covering your cost increases. And there was some trying to manage what I call the wallet impact. Boards made decisions not to increase assessments as recommended. So be it.
Yeah, and Bill, just to provide some context, I went back and looked at the funding plan we did during the 2015 site visit, and the adopted final study was about 4 drafts had in 2024, the percent funded was projected at 46.2%. So just less than 2% or a little over 2% from where it's projected now for next year. So it's hard to tell. And I think back in 2015 is back when we might have had more robust siting numbers coming out of the 2011-12 renovations. But some point, if I have time, I'll go take a look at that in the past and see. But
When was that again,
in
Bob?
2015, if you have the study back from 2015,
Uh,
and Dusty can get you any of them. They're all up on our website for a
That's
minute.
when you calculated that it would be 46.2% funded?
In 2024.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, back then it was in the 20s to 40s. That was it for 30 years. But anyway, percent funded is not a number we ascribe much importance to, even though it's the number that everyone gravitates to: realtors, buyers, sellers, loan underwriters, FHA. It's not a realistic metric to compare studies against, because it has so many pitfalls. It would never survive the scientific method in terms of having it be tested and get the same result every case. The discussion we had with Nina, I think it was, on the landscaping, that 500,000 being put in once for 3 years or 3 times at 500,000 each. Those types of inputs into how the components are entered have a huge impact on the study. And as a professional practitioner, we don't let that drive how we enter, because our goal is on the cash flow to ensure you never fall below your $5 million threshold. That's where the rubber actually hits the road. That's a real number that we should respect. Not the actual number, but the process. The percent fund, I got clients that are over 100% funded, and they've got to raise their contribution 20% a year, because the percent funded is just a calculation of, based on the depreciation of all your components and how much money you're projected to have in the bank at the end of the year. You just take the end of the year balance and divide it into how much you should have, and you get that number. But that number doesn't know if you're collecting $1 million into reserves next year or you're collecting $1. So it's not helpful very much.
Well-
Unfortunately, our legislature mandated it be disclosed to your homeowners each year. So we've got language in the study to help tie those two things together.
But what
Um,
matters if you're selling your house too, I think the perception in the real estate market does matter.
Oh, I'm not saying, I didn't
Yeah.
say that. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it matters to everyone except for the people that know it's hokum. It doesn't mean anything.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, so what we like to say is when you're reading any reserve study is look at the percent funded to be sure, but look at the rate of contribution increases and what is your buffer in your low year. And also, do you have the real components in the study? That's a little harder to tell by a layperson, but a layperson can say, oh, yeah, percent funded's low, but we see the reserve contributions only going up 3% each year. So you can budget around that. It's hard to budget around a percent funded or qualify it for a loan based on a high or low percent funded.
Well, the reserve percentage drives part of the dues we pay too. So, the dues look to be going up substantially this year.
The reserves percentage, what's that mean?
Well, I just said the percentage of what we fund into the reserves based off of our dues. A portion of our dues goes to
Correct.
the reserves.
Yeah, it's probably one of your largest line items, definitely.
Yeah.
That's why there's a whole industry around it.
That's why we pick it apart.
Yeah.
And
That's why I got a big target on my back.
It's not
no,
really that. I'm
no.
trying to understand things here.
Sure.
Yeah.
No,
Not
I
a-
didn't. I was joking. You guys are great. Except for Bill.
Yeah, yeah, Bill.
Hey,
Bill's not-
Bob, I'm standing in front of the bus. I didn't get thrown under the bus.
Right.
It
There you
can
go.
be- It can be a lot worse. I just was talking to my next door neighbor yesterday who owned in fairness, it was a condominium in Stockton and not an HOA, but we're about half, we got 1 foot in each camp. And they got hit for, I think it was $55,000 for special assessment just for exterior repairs. So, that's what happens when you ignore your cash flow situation. Or
Yeah.
you don't project properly.
Yep.
Does anybody have any other questions of Bob? As we do have the operations budget to take a look at too. I'm just mindful that there's maybe some homeowners that have some questions, and I know Ashley had her hand up. Maybe you could take it. Would you mind taking a couple of questions from homeowners?
Sure.
Bob? Okay. Ashley?
Hey, hi, Bob. I was just wondering about the 5 million being a magic number for an assessment. Because it seems like it's always been that 5 million number for quite a while, but there's been inflation and all these other things comparatively that make it seem like percentage wise it's smaller. And then if our percent funded goes down to 37%, and we get some bad surprises again, like the peat siding or a storm, or it just seems like it's getting a little dangerous. But how did someone, or how did you come up with the 5 million number? Can you tell me what that's based on?
How 5 million came up
Yeah.
originally, I'm not sure I'm going to remember that today. Maybe Bill or Will, and some others may. I don't know that there was a lot of analysis around it when it was made up, but I will tell you, if you were a new client and we
Mhm.
just gave you a study without a meeting, and say we had the exact same expense projections here. Say this was our first draft, what you have in front of you.
Okay,
5 million represents about 10% of all the current replacement costs in the study. Like I said before, it's to do everything one time the next time. So it'd be to do all the roofing once, all the painting once, all the siding stage as we have it once. And that $48 million at the bottom of page 20, it's the halfway through the spreadsheet of the expenses. So for condos and planned developments, and in this case, you look more like a condo than a planned development because of the roofing, painting, and
Mhm.
especially the siding. It's not all planned developments take care of siding. 10 to 15% is where we would not want your fund to drop below. And so you've
Okay.
got 48 million in current replacement costs. We'd probably be at 5 or 6 million on our own, left to our own devices. Now that's in the short term. 5 million for Nepenthe right now, 25 years from now might be a little low, and that's where in your study you drop to 5 million in 2049. That might be a little low, but there's so much history that's going to be made between now and then that doesn't bother me. Your hurdle now is through the 3-phased project and the landscaping through the next 5 years. So the 5 million is not out of whack. It's like I said, probably we would put many of our clients in the same boat on our first draft, left to our own devices.
Okay, and then secondly, it just seems like if I were to figure out how much we've been spending on each house, whether it be the back of a driveway or the front of a house, like the back rear yard's about 8,000, front is more like 10, but it just seems like if I take that multiply by 590, it just seems like we have an artificially low replacement value for our landscaping, which is, I feel like, throwing off our calculations to some degree. But it just feels like it's unsustainable for us to be spending at this level. It just doesn't, it seems like we're always going over, and it's creating a bad math problem for us if we look at the percent funded over the past 5 years. Would you agree?
I don't know if I disagree with that.
Okay.
I mean, the landscaping there, like I said, when we started, that's the biggest unknown known that you have. And you're not the only one. And I'm not sure I don't remember what Bill was talking about with potable water, but in a lot of jurisdictions where we work, we're not able to water grass with potable water. And I don't know when that's coming to the city of Sacramento, but it's already in Las Vegas. All of our clients in Las Vegas have to get rid of their non-functional turf, meaning if it's not used for a ball field or something really important, you cannot have turf in your communities, any communities, not just HOAs. I know in California, commercial projects cannot have them. I got a letter from my building. So it's going to be coming. It's something, I don't know that I would budget for it yet, but we should be on the watch for it.
So would you be able to do a version A and a version B when we take out these, I'd say, more subjective landscaping projects out? Would you be able to give us an idea of what our reserves would look like if we took out some of that obsessive landscape spending?
From a technical standpoint, yes, that's easy to do.
Yes, that's what I thought.
It's one of the values of the study is as the board determines they want to look at different priorities or do the priorities in different stages or different ways. The study is one of the best tools you have to see the impact. And we've done that in the past. Oh my gosh, we've done 20 drafts for Nepenthe in some years, and many of them options around landscaping.
Ashley, I think we're going to move on here.
Okay, well, I think it would be helpful for people to see the differences.
You guys have utilized that in the past.
I mean, I can run it myself, but it'd be better to have easier for him to do it.
Yeah, and probably, more acceptable in a lot of ways. But those kinds of issues are really important, as you mentioned, and are probably going to be well discussed when Bob comes back next year to do the site visit. And, you know, I'm sure the board has a lot of discussions about, you know, what are important projects and what are not, because everybody's feeling the pain.
Well, it seems like we spent a lot over the past few years in landscaping and continue to do so. And with all the unknowns, it just seems like we should maybe back off until we have better ideas about what's going on with the potable water. That's just a, you know, a personal viewpoint that it's going to really affect our dues this year.
Oh, I know. And, you know, a couple of years ago, I think like when Tara first came on to the finance committee, we had a list of projects that we wanted to look into, and gray water accumulation was one of them. And I think it might be time to put it back on our list just to see kind of what our options are in terms of collecting gray water, whether it's even a possibility. But that's a different question for a different day. And what we have now is this year's reserve study, which thanks to Bob, we now understand a little better and pretty much see that a lot of the big decisions we're just putting off until next year. And, you know, the questions about cycles and landscape funding and so forth.
Yeah, and at least for the painting, siding, fencing, we know what the questions are. The landscaping is more difficult, but we know what the questions are for those big unit related programs. So, okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you all. Talk
Okay.
to you later.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Good luck.
Okay. Now, shall we turn to the operations budget?
Or let me get that up for you.
I got a suggestion, Susan, on the gray water. We plant corn in the green zones, and then they become functional, and we're not required to use gray water, and we can harvest the corn.
Oh, there we go.
Or maybe
I thought about a
Maybe-
bocce ball court. You know, we could put some bocce ball courts out there.
I think,
Oh.
is bocce ball on grass or isn't it on like dirt stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
you have
it's
to do something
both.
with a lot
You
of
can
that
do it on grass, but it's also on decomposed granite.
We could, you know, some tetherballers and
Yeah.
I had one other one, badminton courts, but what the heck? We'll find something.
Love it. I love it.
Kind of skirting the issue, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
we should be, as any renovation we're doing, we should be getting rid of any of these small patches of turf that we can get out of here. As a byproduct of that.
Exactly. Okay.
Okay. Shall we turn to the operations budget?
What I sent out was just, you know, what we looked at the last meeting, and then updated to show the things that changes, deletions and changes in that. As we had looked at it in September, all in, we'd looked at like a potential $53 increase, and with the changes, we reduced that down to, you know, $35.81 increase. Big portion of that being in insurance. We still don't have good numbers for the flood insurance. which is troublesome, but it's something that we can't control. We did add in, it had been suggested, for our pool maintenance, provision of $1,000 a month for what I'll call transient cleanup. It had been suggested that that be put in the reserve budget, but really that's an operating expense until we have a solution. It's an operating and maintenance thing. So I put that back in and so there was an increase there. We also had considered and spoken about additional security patrols, and good questions and dialogue between through emails and that, and really can't identify a value for that, so we didn't. We took that out as an addition. Thank you, Tara, for the counseling on the taxes. The taxes provision, those against the interest income coming in the reserves, those will get netted and dealt with the way they have historically. We did talk to the CPA. I also added in, our HVAC systems, we have 6 of them, and we don't have an annual inspection. We don't do an annual maintenance on them. So added in just a small provision of $500 each for the 6 units, because we got to start doing that. These things are, near 20 years old, and I'm amazed that we haven't really done any servicing. So we added that in. But all in, we're looking at is an increase of about $35, $36
That's just for
from
operations,
the operating
right?
side. Pardon me?
Okay, yeah, it's
Yes,
just for
it's
operations.
operations,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so the other part of it is another 30.
$17.
Hmm.
So you're talking, let's say, $52.81. Call it $53.
Since the insurance numbers are not solid at this point, do we have any idea when they will be?
Dusty, can you comment on that? Because you've been tracking that.
Sorry, I was fixing the screen. What was the question? Can you repeat the question?
The question is, do we have any idea of when we're going to get a premium notice and that for the flood insurance, or do we have anything indicative at this point?
We don't. I've requested that information, but it doesn't renew until December. So they're not likely to give us that information this far in advance. But I do have an inquiry into them. I'm just waiting for a response.
I'd like to just throw something out there with respect to the flood insurance. And I mean, I know I'm not the first person to talk about this, and I want to also preface this by saying that I would get my own flood insurance anyway. But I think that there's a presumption that if everybody has flood insurance, that everybody will use the insurance to rebuild. And that could be a false assumption. And I think, I'm sure the board has talked about the pros and cons of including flood insurance in the HOA dues. But I don't know that I've ever actually heard anybody kind of ask that question about, well, yes, okay, but if your neighbor has flood insurance, will they actually rebuild if there's a catastrophe? So I'd just kind of like to throw that out there as a point of discussion.
Well, the trouble with, and from my perspective, Susan, with the flood insurance is this, that money does not come to you or me. The money for the flood insurance goes to the HOA to replace the building costs. Whether you decide to live there or not is one your own choice. But the first mortgagee, if everybody looks at their flood insurance policy, is Nepenthe. I mean, it's not Nepenthe. I think it's First Service. So First Service will get the money. And I'd rather get it myself.
Is Jackie on? Can you comment on that?
She's on.
Some ways that answers your question, Susan. When you say, would they rebuild if if Nepenthe ends up with the money, it isn't a matter of choice whether you rebuild. Nepenthe ends up with the funds.
Well, First Service ends up with the funds.
Well, sure.
And I guess my question is does First Service have a legal obligation to then turn and rebuild? So I don't know what that looks like.
That's a great observation, and maybe that's one that we got to throw to our insurance and say, why is the insured First Service residential rather than Nepenthe?
Another thing to comment too is, so my condo is currently being rented, and I have a separate assessment. I think it's either $225 or $255 a year for the fact that I have a rental, and that is just for the flood insurance. So I got an additional bill in May for that, and I'm not quite sure where that goes to or what the benefit is on that one.
It's just a matter of law. If you're not residing in the unit, the cost goes up.
Yeah, I don't understand the nuances of the policy if that's account that's provided and additional and assessed, because it is assessed through First Service. So I don't know how, if I get an additional, I'm sorry, if the NFIP charges an additional amount when they find out that something is being rented. That part is unclear to me, but if it's just a side thing.
Yeah, if you don't turn in the certification that you're a resident within that residence, you don't get the discount.
Got it. Yeah, and that's fine. It's just kind of along the lines of it does go to First Service.
Well, and again, that's the question. Okay, let's throw the question at the carrier and ask the question: why is the insured First Service when it should be Nepenthe? So the Nepenthe organization, First Service doesn't own the property.
No, and I'll make that confirmation for you, because I don't think that is correct, but I do know in your governing documents, the association has the legal obligation to manage any insurance claim opened on the master policy.
Well, the weird part about all this insurance thing is I own the policy. Nepenthe, the policy is on my house. I get an individual insurance report for my property. And so if it's an individual policy and then the association gets the money, it's just kind of weird. I just find it to be convoluted and just not straightforward in terms of how it all works. And even more than that, everybody's policy in here is slightly different. So if mine is higher than my neighbor's, I'm subsidizing my neighbor because we just all get peanut butter at the same cost. It's just, I don't really understand it.
I get it. Flood insurance in an HOA is new for me as well.
Yeah, it just feels like it's a little convoluted for me to have my own policy. But yet I pay a different cost than my neighbors pay. And it's not about size of house, because I've compared it with people who have the same house I have.
We didn't always used to have flood insurance through the HOA.
Well, we have a new $1 billion levy, so I don't know.
Yeah, we didn't have flood insurance when we had no little protection at all and big scares, but Tara, did you have your hand up? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did. Just to kind of to round this subject out is if we can get clarification, Dusty, if you don't mind on that one, you know, with First Service being the named insured on it. If there is a loss, where do the funds go to? What is the obligation of First Service if they're the ones receiving the funds to rebuild? And then going down further from that, what is within the decision or rights of the condo owner? So if there is a catastrophic loss, the funds come in. If I want to rebuild, but Susan does not, is that even a possibility, or is it everybody has to rebuild anyway? And then if it is that I want to rebuild, Susan does not, even though we're all still covered under the same policy, then we're kind of back to maybe comprehensive flood insurance over the entire HOA is not the way to go, because it still is self-selection of the owner to decide whether to rebuild or not. In which case, selection by the homeowner to decide to get flood insurance or not. That would be my suggestion.
Do you want to, should we make,
These are,
should we make a motion? That,
Susan, I think that this is great discussion and one that, you know, as we talk about it, we raise more questions, and I think that we should ask, you know, these questions not only to, you know, about the policy and who's the you know, who gets paid in the control of the funds, but also, you know, we need to have good dialogue over a subject that none of us have. We've got more questions than we have answers and knowledge, and maybe we need to have ILS working with our broker and to educate us.
Well, it's a
Right.
good time to do it because they renew in January.
so I'm just wondering if there's any kind of recommendation that we want to make to the board. As,
I guess it would be, can we make a recommendation to the board to review? I gotta think about this. Sorry, folks, I'm still. my
I
brain's still
have
not-
like get clarification about the policy. Then then you started talking really fast there.
Sorry,
Who's
I
on-
can,
Who
I
gets
can
the money,
summarize.
rights of the rights of the condo owner, rights of the homeowner. So maybe you want to just, yeah.
So I'd make a motion, I guess, if that's the way to do this, is to, one, so Dusty's gonna get the information. It would be, advise the board on the way that the policy would work in the event of a catastrophe and a payout. I'm sorry, I'm just blanking because it's not really our decision. It's just, I think ILS needs to be the one to get clarity on these items.
Yeah,
And then it would be what the impact is to that. Like if we continue with flood insurance, then the recommendation to the board is, this is when you're adopting the budget, if there's a concern with the overall costs, this is moving away from comprehensive flood insurance across all because of these limitations is an option. I don't have good words today. I'm sorry.
okay. I'll try and come up with something and send it to you just for confirmation, but if everybody's okay with that, that would be something.
Do any of our committee members have a different perspective or are not comfortable with getting that additional information?
I would just describe it as the committee be provided with the mechanics of insurance reimbursement as to whether it goes to homeowner or association or First Service, and then what the homeowner options are. But it's kind of the mechanics of how does the thing work?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and if we need it anymore, given our new levy.
Well, we really don't have a new levy. We just have the levy's the same levy.
Okay, but it's been reinforced a lot.
But what they're doing is regrading the run up to the levy.
No, I understand. I live across the street from it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Susan, if I can jump in here quick, regarding the flood insurance. As I understand correctly, is the danger actually does not come from the river side. It comes from the east side, from that overflow channel that we have there, Northrop. That's the one that actually would flood us first. And also the different pricing on the homes is actually because of Nina, the way you described it is because of the location in the development. That's how they price apparently the policy on us.
Thank you.
Isn't that a change this last year? Because previously they had a flat rate. And then it was my understanding that they changed policy either last year or the year before to start taking into account risk, location risk.
They may have, I don't know, but if we have different pricing on homes, it's because of the location in the Panther and Campus Commons either way. So I don't know if they've changed or not, but before, when it used to be different, it was because of that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marcus. Does anybody have any other questions?
I just want to make sure we float what we think the new dues is going to increase to. Is it going to increase to, I'm showing 53 plus or approximately $53 increase in our dues.
That's what I've calculated, yes.
Seems like we ought to be looking at ways to reduce that some. That's just, that's a really big increase. It's the biggest one we've had in a while, so.
Well, if you take the insurance out, the insurance accounts for 28%.
Yes, and
Almost
landscape is
30% of
huge
that.
too. And landscape is huge too.
Yeah, and that,
Mhm.
and commons area, they are. We've looked at it, we scrutinized it. We can scrutinize it again, but this is about where we see it.
Yeah, I figured that was the case. I just want the community to kind of get floated on that a little bit because I don't think the big increase is going to go down very well. Let me say it that way.
Well, I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
But have you think about all the other costs that are out there, and
I understand it's a it's
a big increase.
It's multi-layered. I
Yeah.
just think there's some things we can affect and maybe choosing not to. I think I beat that horse enough.
Well,
Hey,
I kind
I'm
of,
not lying on my back and waving my arms and legs up and down. So
I kind of feel like our big chance at really taking a look at containing the reserve study is going to happen next year. I mean, it's late. The board is meeting next week to approve the budgets. There's not a lot of opportunity for debate and discussion. They've debated and discussed, a lot. So,
But then you've spent the millions you may not have needed to. It's just, I get what you're saying, Susan.
yeah, no, I know it's a big increase and there's no getting away from that for sure. But I think, yeah, I'm just hoping that next year when we're able to really take a look at lots of different parts of the budget that we'll be able to do something, maybe not so much with operations, but more with the reserve study.
It feels like whatever is going to be happening next year needs to start really early because it was
Yeah.
really pushed this year. And I don't think our team had a lot of time to look at it. And there wasn't any real discussion to go back and forth. So,
Yep.
and it looks like Karen Lowry has something to say.
Are we we may not quite be.
Oh,
at
sorry.
the,
Sorry.
No, I mean, we can stop and take homeowner comments with the operations and then kind of really quickly just, I know Bill has something he'd like to probably mention with regard to the investments, but other than that, should we can take, Karen, go ahead. You have a question?
I was just following up on a question I asked last week, and I don't think there's been time for you to get the information yet regarding landscaping. And as we take a look at ways, possibly any ways to reduce landscaping costs and which strategies are more effective than others, I'd asked last week, we have one pilot project that covered more than one lot. It covered several lots there in the 300s of Elmhurst, and one of the selling points of that is it was going the plant replacement and any other work. I think they addressed several variables like grading and irrigation and so forth. That would reduce maintenance costs, or it was hoped that it would, and water use and so forth. It'd be pretty hard to measure any water changes because we're not on metering, but are there any, I continue to ask, are there any plans to try to get a handle on whether or not the maintenance costs or any other cost savings come from that renovation that included all those different variables? That makes it ideal, I think, in terms of a control or a comparison, is that sometimes you haven't addressed some variables, and so you can say, well, differences are due to this or that. But as I understood, the cost of it covered addressing grading and other things too. So sorry for going around in circles, but were you able to tell if there's any way to start measuring the effectiveness of that?
I loved your comment last month, and I still like it. I put it in the minutes, and I guess I'm not sure. I mean, I think it is a finance committee issue, but I'm not sure how we go about asking for that.
The data, the problem is you don't have the data out there. I mean, you've got a small portion of a very large project in which you've made these modifications, and you've got a contract for the whole project, not for any small portion of it. You'd have to do a man-hour study, and you'd have a baseline before it started, which we don't have, I don't think. So,
well, even some anecdotal information from the people that live in that area about, I'm really aware in my area how often they actually prune, how often they actually mow, how often they actually, so even, it's not a gold standard, but it might be, I don't know, I could be completely off base. So I'm thinking if we don't start somewhere,
yeah.
You've got a lot of longtime residents in there that have lived there for quite some time, and your landscaper was there before that pilot project was put in, I believe. So they might have some data or impressions, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll drop it. I just was hoping that since that was a selling point, that we
I'm right in the middle of it, and I couldn't tell you whether or not there has been, because it didn't have any impact on the mowing, so it would be strictly the pruning that would be affected. And I know, I didn't document how much time they were spending before and how much time they're
Well,
spending now.
It wouldn't be for you, it would to give us the data. It would be something that we would get from Carson, I would think, something.
Yeah.
And,
I don't
you
think
know,
they're- they didn't have a pre-test, so.
well,
so
they have,
could
they
take-
have data from before
They should
did-
have man hours. They should have I don't know. I'm sorry. I probably have unrealistic expectations. Sorry.
If I, if I could say something here, I think that's a question more for the grounds and for the board board liaison to discuss with the other members, Karen. We're talking about just a small project, and we also continued in zone 7, but we've got 590 homes, we've got 55 acres. So trying to take a small area and say, hey, this is going to make this huge difference. It is something that we can discuss and talk about, but I don't think this is really for finance. It's more for the grounds and for the board to give you that information, which we certainly can.
I mean, I think it certainly can be part of finance, and to the extent that it has financial implications. But,
Correct.
and you know, if it so happens that you would like our input and advice, we'd be, I'm sure, happy to give it. But I think, you know, just in terms of a research project, I think the whole reason you did that, as Karen is saying, was in order to have information to be able to make decisions about what to
Correct. And what we're trying to do is lowering obviously bringing down the maintenance time, but also doing detail work. So we get a lot of people who start complaining about the fact that, you know, their hedges, their shrubs are not being pruned, or this is not happening because we don't have time to do the detailed work. So that is what we are in the process of doing. But in order to get to some point like that, we have to actually spend some money. And so what I keep hearing is that we're spending too much on landscaping. But how do we get to a point to actually show the results if we are handcuffed in spending?
Well, the interesting piece about that is we were told by Carson that our costs would go down if we did some of these projects. We've done probably a third of our community at this point, and the costs keep rising. I think that's the beef.
Well, what we did is the zone 6, part of zone 7, and also part of zone 1, but we haven't really done any major work, and that's what we're hoping to do. But that's in the process, and that's what we are trying to get to work out.
Well, thanks,
Thank
Chris.
you. Thank you.
It's always helpful to talk about this stuff and look at cost decreases. I can't imagine that there haven't been some decreases in hours spent. I mean, I know how much time they spent pruning shrubs around my house, and it was a lot anyway. So keep bringing it up, Karen, because at some point we'll figure it all out.
Thank you.
And Bill, did you want to say something about the investments?
You're muted, Bill.
Damn, that's because my security system, the barkers were going off. So I was reviewing the September financials, and one of the things I observed is that interest revenues have decreased over the past, couple 3 months. So I raised the question, what's going on? And found that between First Services and Morgan Stanley, approximately $3.7 million was not reinvested during the month of September, and first part of October was reinvested effective, I think it was the 12th. And I'm in the process now and working with Carla Chung at First Services, and she's working with Morgan Stanley and trying, okay, what happened? Why did it happen? How do we, make sure it doesn't happen again? And more importantly, we expect to you know, be protected from a loss or reimbursed for interest income not realized. If you think about it, you know, it works out. You know, Tara can do the math very quickly. 5% on $3.7 million isn't chump change. So just so that you have a heads up, and that you'll see some variance in the financials, and we're working on it, and they've been told it's unacceptable, and we do expect appropriate consideration.
Given the time period, it's actually about closer to 0.5% because it's slightly over a month that you lost.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
It was a really good catch.
That times $3 million.
Yeah. You know, 5%, just divide, you can work it out in dollar days or whatever, but you know, it's not chump change. And most importantly is it just says we collectively need to scrutinize and ask questions. And you know what I look at is I can't look at every transaction. You don't want me to. You know, as treasurer, that's not, you know, not our role. But ourselves as finance committee, you know, the liaison management, we need to look at these things and say, this doesn't look quite right. Doesn't smell right. And let's ask the questions.
Well, it was a great catch, Bill. Good job. You earned your money this week.
Hey, do I get a raise?
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
Come out to about $15,000.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know, it's things, it's the little things. And it's what we talk about. So I'll let you know where we come out.
All right. More at 11.
Yeah.
Andy, you are still on. I know I emailed you asking you a couple of questions about the reserve tracker. So I thought I'd give you an opportunity to talk about that.
I have no idea. I see what you're talking about, but I went through just briefly because I haven't had time to go through, but I went through when I updated it in September and October, and we have captured every REA. I've verified it with the general ledger. So I don't know where those numbers came from. I also see some miscoding into different GL numbers. Those are not the numbers we've submitted on our REA, so I'll have to check with our GL accountant and find out why he's using those GL codes. I don't know, but I also don't know how he captured the $500,000 payment from the insurance claim that we received, Nepenthe received. So that could be finally showing up somewhere, but I've matched every single REA expense with what's on the tracker and what's actually in the general ledger for expenses for the month. I don't know where that discrepancy is, so I'm gonna have to reach out to Bill. I have no idea.
Okay.
Not Bill Henley, Bill Lewis.
Oh, I figured as much.
Hey,
For everybody else
but,
listening,
you know,
I did.
The reserve tracker, you know, it's a point in time. It's the most perfect imperfect tool that we have.
Yeah.
And you know, we all working together can make it better and more meaningful. So,
I mean, I can tell you that I have absolutely captured every REA form on that reserve tracker. And I've also gone through anybody's stuff that they've sent me and double checked and verified with coding and make sure they're all matching and compared them 1-to-1 and cleaned all that up. But I don't know where that came from. So I have no idea what's on the financials for that.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, we'll just have to dig into that a little bit.
Yeah.
That's just weird.
Yeah, it is.
Well, thank you for that.
Of course.
Does anybody have any other questions about either the reserve tracker or the financials?
I have my hand up.
Ashley, we're
So-
just, this isn't the homeowner part of the.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, thanks. Team, any other questions for Andy, Dusty, Bill on the reserve tracker? Nothing?
I had your picture.
None for me, thank you.
Okay, all right. Ashley, you want to make a last comment?
Great job, Bill, on that catch. And just something else I'd like you to ask them is, there's a couple different kinds of fee structures. And first off, why are they using Morgan Stanley all the way in DC? And can Nepenthe choose their own financial advisor? And are they charging us a managed account fee? I don't see one, but also we're not seeing the tickets. Like they sold a $2 million treasury. And if there was a trade confirmation, you'd be able to see, what kind of commission we were paying for that. So anyway, if you could just check in to find out like what we're paying Morgan Stanley, I would think for the commissions, they'd be giving us more advice than they are. And I'm just not seeing it. But anyway, if you could just ask about that too, that'd be great.
Put it on my list to of things to follow on, Ashley. It's a couple, 3 pages long. So, but thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Well, I think since if nobody has any other questions, we're approaching adjournment time. I just want to check in with everybody about the timing for the next meeting, which is November 27th. Is that good for everybody?
I gotta check the calendar.
It's a Monday after Thanksgiving, right?
Oh, yeah, we'll be back.
I'll be back, okay.
I'll be there with bells on.
Woohoo!
Or with no sling on and on camera. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that sounds very good. Okay. Well, appreciate everybody's time. I know this was a long one. We had a lot of stuff to get through. And with that, I think we can adjourn at 6:07.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Thank you.
Bye.